Now we'll discuss a little bit about what coverage of teaching looks like in ABA at CSNT. Now we've categorized all of our learning tasks under 6 domains. Domains themselves cover different areas of learning, which with each domain cataloged by age and difficulty. So we have behavior development, which may cover most of what we call foundational learning or learning to learn skills, such as general compliance, sitting, waiting, tagging, meaning to follow people. And the next we have communication. This could include making choices, manding, commenting, and phone use. Next, we have social emotional skills, which would include greetings, turn taking, and maybe even joining in. Independence and self help would include a variety of skills that would improve for a student's um, independence. So we're looking at independent play, imaginary play, following schedules, and maybe even dressing. Academic learning would cover more cognitive learning, and we're looking at matching, imitations, following receptive instructions, learning how to sequence maybe stories, reading comprehension, math, and even up to inferencing. Sensory motor skills would cover fine and gross motor skills. And the basic foundation of learning, we're looking at discrimination, having someone understanding consequence, understanding right from wrong. And then we have matching the sample. So, for example, someone understanding visual similarity. Receptive and expressive labels will include understanding what the names of things are. They may identify by retrieving an object or even saying what the object's name is. Imitation, object imitation, and body imitation would cover for someone to learn how to copy what they see. And then receptive instruction would just be following verbal instructions. Now, here's an example of discrimination. When the therapist produce a stimulus, whether it's the actual apple or a card, and the student responds by saying apple, at which point they're reinforced with something they like. So you're producing a reinforcement. And upon the next time they see the same stimulus, the student is likely to reproduce the same answer because of the previous reinforcement. And likewise, when you produce, let's say, look at an example stimulus 2, you're producing a pair or an object, um, and the student says apple, at which point the lack of reinforcement also teaches them that's the wrong response. Therefore, the next time they should change when the same stimulus is produced. And here's a video example of discrimination.
What's this? Apple. Yes, apple. For you. What's this? Apple. That's not apple.
Next, we have example of match to sample discrimination training. And we're teaching what we mentioned earlier, visual similarity. So I'm producing, once again, whether it's an object or a card, stimulus 1 of an apple, and the student at which point should match on the table in the visual field the same picture or the same object. So they're matching with apple, and upon that, they're receiving a reinforcement. And stimulus 2, producing a pair, and they match with the wrong one, therefore there's a lack of reinforcement. And likewise with the last one, stimulus 3, I'm producing a strawberry or a card or an object, at which point they match with the wrong picture or object, and there is a lack of reinforcement at the same time. And so we only we provide the reinforcement for matching accurately. And here are some examples of match to sample discrimination training.
Match. Yes, that's the same. For you. Match. No, that's not the same.
Next, we have an example of receptive label. So I will produce 2 objects on the table, or I'll present 2 cards on a field, at which point I will deliver the instruction, point to an apple, or I may just simply say apple. And of course, if the student points or identifies somehow by gesture, by retrieving, upon delivering the correct response, we will once again deliver reinforcement. And here's an example of receptive labels. Of course, at which point, if we produce two stimulus again and we say point to apple, upon the student given a wrong response, there will be a lack of reinforcement. And here's an example of that.
Point to apple. Yes, that's apple. Well done. Point to apple. No, that's not the apple.
And here's an example of expressive labels. Now, we will produce once again an object or a card of an apple, and we will ask, what kind of fruit is it? And the student verbally replies, apple. Once again, correct response, reinforcement. Here's a video example. And here we are, once again, same thing. We deliver the same stimulus, but this time the student produces the wrong answer, at which point there is no reinforcement. Here's a video example.
What kind of fruit is this? Apple. Yes, it's an apple. Good job. What kind of fruit is this? Cat. No, that's not a cat.
Example body imitation would look like this in the whole sequence in a 3-term contingency. We say do this, and then which point we do an action, and then the student copies the action, and once again there's a reinforcement. Or we say do this, the student doesn't copy, and then there's a lack of reinforcement. And here are some video examples of that.
Do this. Yes, well done. Do this. No, that's not what I did.
Example of receptive instruction will look like this. I will place a car on the table, at which point I will verbalize and I will say push the car. At which point the student pushes the car, and once again, correct response, reinforcement. If I were to say push the car and the student doesn't do anything, there's no reinforcement. And here's an example of receptive instructions.
Push the car. Yes, you push the car. Push the car. Hey, you didn't push the car.